You will discover how Niantic transformed community sentiment and product success by leveraging their ambassador program as a catalyst for growth. Our speaker will share how he measures the impact of a user-centric approach and builds a compelling case for prioritizing customer feedback in your product development lifecycle. Please join me in welcoming Martín Gonzáles.
Thank you all for joining. As Beth mentioned, I'm here at Niantic Labs. I'll go a little bit into what and who we are, but we're going to be here today to talk about how to leverage your ambassador programs and how we've leveraged our ambassador programs to ensure our product success and a 180-degree change in our community sentiment with our Wayfair community. And so before we jump in, I want to humanize myself and share a little bit more about me. So as Beth mentioned, my name is Martín Gonzáles. I use pronouns he, him, él for our Spanish-speaking community out there. And yeah, as she mentioned, I'm the community operations manager here at Niantic. I spent over 3 years in community work to this point, but previously spent 10 years in education, working with students as seasoned as graduate doctoral students at university levels, all the way down to high school, middle school, elementary, and most recently, before leaving education, with kindergarten students. So definitely a lot of crossover in those skill sets. And I love working with educators now in the gaming and tech industries. Down there, you'll see my cute 2 little children, Mila and Luna. So they take up majority of my time when I'm working from home. But I also love hiking, visiting farmers markets, traveling, and in spirit of National Hispanic Heritage Month, also visiting our local panaderias, which are Mexican bakeries. So enough about me. Let's go ahead and jump into what is Niantic? Who is Niantic? So many of you may have heard about Niantic Labs. We are the producers of some of the products that you see here on my screen, in particularly probably the most famous one, Pokemon Go, and gaining a ton of more popularity with Monster Hunter now. And so we do produce a lot of AR experiences within games, mobile games that are geolocation based. However, I particularly manage 2 of the communities for Niantic, which are Niantic Scaniverse and Niantic Wayfair. And we'll be jumping into Niantic Wayfair more so, as that's where we've seen a lot of the positive impact from us really tapping into our community ambassador program. Awesome. So today, I'll go ahead and share with you kind of what was the predicament, what was the issue, what was our concern when I jumped into this role and adopted this community, how we chose to take a collaborative approach with our community to really make sure that we leverage that 360-degree feedback loop between what we were putting out and how our users reacted, what they thought and what they want, how we measured our growth and made sure to report up to senior executives to have them visualize tangibly how our community ensures the success of our products. And so I'll be sharing some of that with you. And then lastly, leaving you all with some tips of, hey, if you're going to be running or are currently running an ambassador program, have you tried X, Y, and Z to make sure that we are leveraging them and equipping them with the tools for them to be as successful as possible. This is kind of the 3 pillars that I took note once I adopted this community. So I adopted this community about 3 years ago. However, it is one of our longest standing communities here at Niantic. Ever since 2017, 2018, our Wayfair community and Wayfair Explorers have been a part of our Niantic ecosystem. And so a little bit more to give context, Wayfair is a way for our users to contribute user-generated points of interest on the global map to enhance their gameplay experience, whether it's in Pokemon Go, Monster Hunter Now, Pikmin Bloom, Swan, and so forth. And so we have some very passionate, dedicated users who are part of this community. However, when I took over about 3 years ago, I noticed that our community was kind of hectic, very chaotic, and it really lacked the structure for us to leverage any cohesive ideas or kind of scope out within their communication what really matters to them. And we noticed that they were lacking just that leadership from us, the organization and structure that we should have been providing. And also noticed that there was a lot of misinformation about how to use this product, what led to rejections or approvals of their peer-reviewed user-generated content. And this was definitely not scalable. There was no way for us to leverage the community to make sure that our product was successful. Next, it lacked connection. So if any company is having a community forum space, there needs to be that connection with the company. So how is Niantic connecting with our users on a daily basis? How are our users feeling seen, heard? And most importantly, how are we taking that feedback into consideration and putting it through the cycle in sprints to make sure that we're producing what our users want? So we did have very little Niantic presence, and something that we definitely wanted to address. Of course, as you all know, that can lead to lack of trust, more misinformation being spread, and then a very lackluster sense of ownership from our users. So when they don't feel that sense of ownership, there's not a strong enough bond for them to continue using the product. So we lose some of that stickiness. And then lastly, as I mentioned, this is a user-generated type of community. So they're generating different points of interest around the map. And so when they submit these to us, they go into a backlog, they go into voting, and then they review their peers' contributions. Because of our broken system, that wasn't built as it should have or with them in mind. We didn't really empower our community to do that. So we had a massive backlog of user-generated content that wasn't being processed in time. We had some of those contributions dating as old as 3 years, 4 years. And so that was really something that they felt resentment about, right? I spent time to contribute something to your product so that I can then enjoy it on the back end once it gets reviewed, but you're not doing that. So I'm wasting my time. What am I doing? And so it really kind of built a really negative sentiment within the community because there were contributions that had been just sitting there for so long. And so at that point, we really took it upon ourselves to address these issues. We knew that we had to kind of fight against everybody else at the companies. Like you all know, resources are tight. So how are we going to make sure that we got the attention from leadership? It's like, hey, here's what we want to do. Here's what funds we need. And here's what we think that this will end up resulting in. And a big portion of that was with this backlog. So this backlog was a key performance indicator set by our organization's leaders of we need to address these. We can't build a map of the world. We can't have our users engage with our games on mobile around the world if there aren't these locations that they can engage with. And so that was our hook for making sure that we had their attention, and then they knew that leveraging our community was going to lead to our product success. And the way that we went about it is by launching an ambassador program. So for however long our community had been in live, we never had a formalized structure for our community leaders to be risen to a higher status, a higher kind of place on a pedestal to where they can represent their community, they can represent their peers, and they have that direct line of communication with us. And so our community ambassadors, of course, then funneled a lot of that information from the community to us, which was incredibly important. But we also started to notice that there was a lot of changes happening naturally because of us having an ambassador program. It increased the trust in our community. We now had a very funneled way for, over 100,000 users to share their feedback with our ambassadors. Our ambassadors, being kind of the pinnacles of these communities, really helped funnel those and set the priority level for those and what would be the most impactful for their own community. Our users are spread all around the world. We have currently 24 ambassadors in every major continent except for Antarctica and Africa, I believe. So we do kind of get a really global perspective on our community and what their needs are. And so from them, we were able to kind of pull them in, ask the real questions, ask, hey, what do you all need to make sure that you are successful? And so with that, they started, of course, tossing everything at us, right? We empowered them and brought them in after having them sign NDAs, brought them into our Jira projects. So they now have access to create bug tickets, to create feature request tickets, to create tasks. That produced over 250 tickets since the beginning of the year. And we started to notice, wow, there is a lot of attention that this community needs for us to be able to really leverage it and make sure that they're successful. And so with that, we also started taking a look at all of our messaging that we sent out to our users, all of the features that we had them engage with. Because our users come from a gaming background, being that they have to play either Pokemon Go or Ingress to become a part of this community, we knew that they had that gaming instinct in mind. And so with the ambassadors, we made sure to kind of create some challenges to get them invigorated, to get them excited. And that kind of goes to our first point of engaging in events. With this one, we were able to connect these events to addressing our backlog. Our community, of course, is very engaged and motivated. Yes, I want that backlog to go down. I want my contributions to be resolved. And being that this also parallels on the business side, we were able to get this backlog significantly reduced within a year. And so at the beginning of the challenges, our backlog of user-generated contributions hovered just over 1 million contributions around the globe. Through 3 to 4 different challenges, focusing on some of the concentration areas and countries for these user-generated contributions, we were able to get it down to under 300,000. So that was a huge win for us. We were able to have a really healthy backlog where globally it's supported. And then also users started to see their nominations getting processed significantly faster. We brought more folks in. People are engaged and making more contributions because of that. And then on the business end, for us to have reviewed these, it would have cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars to have our own agents be there reviewing each one of these individually. And so it was a huge cost saving for the company and a huge win for our community as well. Some of the other areas, they helped us structure our community. So we have them with moderator status in our communities. They're able to engage with their users. Of course, after a training, we did give them this community moderator status so that they can go in and edit anything that they may see. They can message other users, be like, hey, I noticed you came in real hot in that last comment. Was that your intention? And so we have them really connecting with our community, both on a public and a little bit more of a private forum. And then also looked at our, I don't want to call it enforcement ladder. There we go. A much more friendly approach. So because they come from gaming, there's also this innate sense of anti-cheat. I don't want anybody to cheat with our systems. I don't want anybody to, get some unfair advantage. And so they helped us structure our enforcement ladder. In the past, it was a 3 strikes, you're out type of system. And we've been able to leverage our ambassadors to support us in building a more scaffolded enforcement ladder where the punishment will then dictate the level of severity of the consequence. So it's no longer 1, 2, 3, you're out. It's, hey, you did this, it's measured against this level of severity, you're going to get a warning. Or, hey, you did something really egregious, that's going to give you a 30-day suspension. And so we had a lot of cross-functional partners also engaged with that, from trust and safety to legal, game designers. And so because of the ambassadors really tapping into this, they really gained a lot of respect across the company. And only because we invited them to the table, we opened the doors and said, hey, we want you to be a part of these conversations as the leaders in the community, as the pinnacles for these communities. And so they really helped us humanize this process. Everything from the type of severity, the type of infraction, how many points you're going to be getting on this punishment ladder, and in the messaging as well, making sure that it doesn't sound incredibly punitive, making sure that it sounds welcoming. It's like, hey, we all make mistakes. Let's go ahead and try to address some of those points. And so this is really something that we pride ourselves in. Our ambassadors are super engaged with this. They've now been invited to be beta testers for Pokemon Go, for some of our other products, and they're really the front line or the first group of folks that come to mind as trusted users to invite them and get their feedback. And so we're opening the doors for them to participate in other products as well as our own, and giving us that user voice at the table. And so that's been incredibly successful. Next, charting our growth, right? So with all of this, with the success, at the end of the day, leadership will still come and be like, okay, what's the impact? Why does this dictate this amount of budget, this amount of time, this amount of resources? And so for us, we leveraged our ticketing system. And so as you can see, we made it rain tickets. They submitted over 250 ambassador-generated tickets that were elevated or investigated within their peers, the community. At this point, we've resolved around 40% of those. But what this translates, and how we translated this to our leadership, is that they're doing this work because they're incredibly passionate about ensuring the success of this product, ensuring the success of their user experiences. If we had our engineering team or our staff go and investigate some of these issues themselves, this would take up a significant portion of their time, having to reach out cold turkey to all of these users. So this translates to a lower cost on FTEs, full-time employees, and really allows this very passionate group of individuals to file some of these tickets. So we gave them a template and said, hey, we want to know the user's code name, an example, a description. Is there anything specific about this type of issue? Is it locked to a specific region of the world? And so they have a very clean and clear process for how they do this. And so because of this, right, leadership knows that, wow, this really kind of has a really strong return on investment, right? We're allowing for folks to dedicate some time to these programs, and we know that they're gonna really be worth it in the long run. Secondly, the backlog was an organizational KPI. So we knew we could leverage that as something that we wanted to engage our users in, and again, tie it to a cost. So not only did this translate into a direct cost of our full-time employees not having to review these manually, but leveraging it and gamifying it for our users to do a lot of the reviews. So for these reviews, we broke it up into different tiers. If they reached a specific tier, they got an X number of rewards within the games that they play. And this really motivated them to contribute and participate. When we first started our backlog reduction efforts through challenges, we had around 6,000 individuals participate on a global scale. Our most recent one had around 40,000 participants reviewing user-generated content, and again, reducing that backlog to around 300,000. And that's the first image you see at the bottom in blue. You can see the decrease every time we had a challenge. So you'll see a little bit of a plateau, then a decrease, a little plateau, decrease, and then for one instance, it did increase because they knew a challenge was coming. And so they went out and nominated to get their reviews done faster. And by having these types of engaging events, it really creates that stickiness that we want. Folks will contribute, they'll come back, they'll partake in our ecosystem of contributing, reviewing, and then populating the map. On the left side, you'll see our edits. So that one was even more significantly reduced. And these are edits to some of those locations that have been previously reviewed and added to the map. And then lastly, sentiments galore. We report, of course, on sentiment. We use the tools within our forum host but also at live events. We had a significant amount of people coming to us this summer saying, hey, you all did amazing. Keep it up. This is great. My nominations used to take a year to 2 years to get resolved. Now they're getting resolved in a matter of hours to no longer than a week. And so with that, our leadership, when they're around at our local events, they're seeing that. They're seeing people engage with us on a human level, really appreciating our efforts, and making sure that they're sharing that sentiment, right? As many of you know, in communities, it's very easy to have a significant amount of the feedback shared be negative, but we're loving that we're seeing the shift in our community and really having folks acknowledge our forum moderators for just connecting with them, our features getting highlighted, say, hey, this is great. Don't take it away. Let's keep this. And so we've seen a lot of that really positive feedback from our community as well, because we started an ambassador program and really gave them the tools that they need to be successful. And that's really what it comes down to, right? Providing them with the essentials. So we made sure that with our ambassador program, all of our goals were aligned, making sure that the community goals aligned with our larger organizational goals, such as with the backlog, such as with engagement and PS scores, empowering our ambassadors by giving them access to tools, so having them sign NDA so that we can be more transparent with them, and sharing some of the inner workings. Of course, there's still gates that they can't go past, but at least the surface level stuff that they're getting a little bit more of an understanding of how the systems work, how the app works, how the website works, so on and so forth. They've been able to give us more nuanced feedback on how to improve the product for them. And then lastly, measuring and reporting. So making sure that we are measuring every single one of the actions, from the number of tickets, number of engaged community forum posts, number of attendees to events, and we're reporting it out. We report it out on a company-wide Slack channel every time we hit a major success point or have an update, so that folks know here's what's happening with our ambassadors. Here's how we're empowering them. Here's how they're contributing to the success of our product and our overall organization. So with that, that is all for me. So I will stop talking. I believe there will be a question and answer period, and I will also check out the chat because I've been sharing and not being able to see it for the last couple of minutes.
Thank you, Martin. It was amazing, amazing sharing. I love your backlog reduction method and the strategy that you employed, and like all the sharings of your ambassador program. Thank you so much for that. And I'm gonna dive right into Q&A because there's so many questions, and I don't think we would be able to answer everything, but I'll get you some of the very early on questions that we came across. Okay, so one question for you. What tools are you using to organize your community and empower your ambassadors?
Yeah, definitely. So we're using a variety of tools. One, Jira. They love Jira. They create those reports, and that's given to a select few. So our ambassadors have persona types, and a certain persona type of the ambassadors is the bug chasers. They're the ones that love addressing all bugs, so they have access to that. Our entire ambassador community operates on Discord. So we have a private channel on Discord where we invite all of our ambassadors to have meetings with us. So we meet with them every week, at least for an hour. And so we use Discord. We also use Discourse. So Discourse is our community forum platform, and that's where they have those moderator tools. And then those are the three main tools that we have: Jira, Discord, and Discourse, where we operate on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. Okay, the next question for you is from Meredith. I think this is also a very important question. You mentioned that this ambassador program helped create or improve trust between your members and the company. How did you measure the trust? That's the question.
Yeah, really. So unfortunately, we didn't have a really strong method for collecting a lot of that data previously. Now we're using it via user surveys. And so with our user surveys, there's around 20 questions or so that we ask. And so not only do we get an NPS score, but we also measure the responses for all of the other questions that are focused around trust, communication, being heard. And so that's how we measure it on a data sense that we can report up. And then secondly, we check in with our community forum moderators, our ambassadors, and we collect comments and feedback that they give us. So it's, qualitative data as well that we collect from the community forum. Discourse has an AI sentiment meter, so we use that as well. We just started using that a couple of months ago. Still getting a hang of it and how we can leverage it for our success, but still newer to that one. So that one's still to come.
Amazing. I mean, it is a great start to start a couple of months before any of us. So that is very, very good. Hoping to hear the results after like a couple of months as well, like how it went for your in terms of your ambassador program, Martin. Okay, so the next question is,
I think we're actually out of time for questions.
Oh, yes. One more minute. Yes. I was thinking like we can take one more question, but it's okay. I feel like this will get more answers. So yeah, I think like I would encourage everyone to connect with Martin after the session if you have further questions or thoughts. And if Martin can put down his LinkedIn on the public chat and any other way to connect with everyone, that would be great. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Martin.
Awesome. Thanks
everybody. So yes, Martin, I think there's so many questions that people like, shocking amount of questions. I've taken all of them and I've put them into a doc. So maybe you and I can work on building out some kind of blog post or something to share Q&A style. The people want more from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed my time here. I did post my LinkedIn in case folks do want to ask questions or reach out. More than happy to connect. And yeah, thank you so much for the time and space.